Tonight we're hosting the 7 candidates vying to become the Republican Party's nominees for the City of Frederick Aldermen and Women. But before we get started, I would like to say a big thank you to FCC for hosting us here at this fine facility. We couldn't do it without them, and they've been very generous over the past few years in letting us host our forums here. So thank you also to WFMD, has helped us promote the forums, and but especially the FCC. Before we meet the candidates, just a quick reminder to silence your cell phones, please, if you have them. I'll do that with mine, I'm just reminding myself. Please refrain from shouting, heckling during tonight's events. If you would, please don't throw anything at me, the moderator. It's a joke. Before we meet, let's meet the candidates. From your left, Daniel D. Cow. You can give a round of applause if you would like. Next to him, Philip Dacey. Hayden B. Duke. We have Alan Imhoff. Joe King. Katie Nash. And on the end there, Dave Schmidt. Thank you for coming. So let's take a moment to go over tonight's rules for the forum. First, keep your eyes on the lights. There's 2 of them right down here in front of you. The yellow light will signal 15 seconds left. The red light, that means stop. And remember, we'll give you a little leeway to go over, not much, and I will cut you off if you go too long. News Post Managing Editor Terry Headley is our timekeeper for the evening. He's sitting down front there, so keep your eye on him too. We'll begin with a 1-minute opening statement from each of you, and we'll proceed down the table in alphabetical order. For our question and answer rounds, we'll have one that is a general question for all candidates. That is, the same question will go to all of you down the line. In round 2, we're going to ask a unique question to each of you. And we will give the other candidates not receiving the question one chance, and one chance only if they choose to take it, to speak to one of the other candidates to that question or to one of the other candidates' questions. You'll have 30 seconds and one 30-second block only to use. Once you use that, you have to sit on your hands and you won't be allowed to speak again unless you get a question. Our 3rd and 4th rounds will mirror the 1st and 2nd, and then we'll give you each 1 minute to sum up your candidacy for our audience with your closing statements, and we'll take that in reverse alphabetical order. So Mr. Dacey, you'll be leading us off. So let's get going. We'll take our opening statements first with Daniel Cowell.
Good evening. How's everyone doing today? Good. I was born in Frederick Memorial Hospital, and growing up locally in Middletown, I went to Middletown High School. I continued my career in college at Frederick Community College, where I played soccer and worked part-time. I went on to Towson University to graduate, came back to the city that I love and grew up in. Last year, in January of this year, my wife and I celebrated the birth of our son, and that's the real reason why I'm getting involved. I'm a financial planner, I'm a credit manager for JP Morgan Chase Bank, and I am a financial planner for my family. I believe that I have the skills and expertise with the knowledge of risk and financial planning to help the city's budget get in line, get our debt down so we can lower our taxes, and I want to also make certain that our public feels safe by having foot patrols in certain neighborhoods and potentially a police substation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on to Philip Dacey. Before you start, just a reminder to speak directly into the mics, and if any of the audience members have trouble hearing, just wave at me, okay, and we'll see what we can do. Sorry to interrupt, please go ahead.
Good evening, my name is Philip Dacey. 4 years ago, I was in your position in the audience, listening. This year, I'm up here running. Let me tell you, it's more comfortable in the audience. So, to tell you a little bit about myself, I grew up here in Frederick. I graduated from Thomas Johnson. I come from a big family. My dad was a teacher for 30 years here in the public schools. My mom's a nurse at FMH. My wife, Alicia, is a small business owner downtown. She's actually a marriage therapist, so you might imagine that keeps me in line. I've got 2 little girls, Harper, who is 2, and Kira, who is 4. And I think it's pretty neat that they'll go to the same schools that I went to, as if things don't change, and I hope they don't. For education, I studied at the University of Maryland, College Park. I studied government and politics. I was a chief of staff in Annapolis. I then decided I needed to get a skill, and I went to law school at night and started working as an attorney for the state of Maryland. I am a certified mediator, which may come in handy depending on who's elected in the next 4 years. I'm also very involved in the community. I was on the Frederick Zoning Board of Appeals, the Frederick County Ethics Commission, and I've been appointed to the Governor's Criminal Justice Information Advisory Board. Thank you very much.
Nicely summed up. Let's move down the table to Hayden Duke. 1 minute.
Good evening. My name is Hayden Duke, and I have to tell you I'm not a politician, nor do I aspire to be one. I'm going to give you a little information about myself, and then I'm going to discuss some of my core values, the ideas that guide me. So I'm a political science major. I went to St. Mary's College of Maryland, where ironically in 1634 my family came to these shores seeking liberty and financial empowerment. So, and like I said, I'm not a politician. I'm someone who's been volunteering in the community for years. Here are 3 of my core values. Leadership. I've served on the Ethics Commission. I served with Phil. I served on the Human Relations Commission, which I chaired, and I taught citizenship to immigrants in Central Hispano to Frederick. Every one of my students is now an American citizen who is able to vote in this election in the city of Frederick. I believe in liberty. I believe in the supreme power of the individual over the power of government. And I believe in equality and empowerment. And having chaired the HRC and now chairing the Human Relations Commission, I tell you that our city will not reach its true potential unless and until everyone has a seat at the table and every voice in this city is heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to Alan Imhoff for a minute.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. And thank you to the Frederick News Post, and FCC, and WFMD for giving us the opportunity to come before you, our prospective employer. We are all candidates for employment with you. We've passed the first test in filling out the application. We're registered voters, like most of you, and we're also a citizen and resident of the city for 1 year. Those are our minimum requirements. It's up to you over the next couple of weeks to gather the information that you're going to need to differentiate between all the candidates and who you want to support for your vote on September 10th. I hope that part of the 5 that you get to choose for Republicans, I would be one of them. I have the education, I have the former ability to be an alderman, having been one for 4 years, and I have the pleasure of representing this city for over, let's see, I think it's 14 years now, so thank you for coming out again.
Thank you. We'll move along the table one more to Jill King.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jill King, and I am running for alderman in Frederick City. I have been a Republican for several years now, formerly a Democrat. I was also born in Frederick City. I was graduated from Frederick High School, and am currently a student in paralegal studies at FCC. I have been involved with politics locally and write commentary for thetentacle.com. And I've been watching the city for the past few years and seeing the decisions that have been made and questioning and making sound, responsible motions for them to improve on some of the processes and some of the decision making that they do. I hope that everyone will take a look at all of us and hear what we have to say and vote in September. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Katie Nash.
Hi, good evening. I am Katie Nash. I am running for alderman. I'm running because I believe that we have a tremendous opportunity before us, an opportunity to make some very good decisions, some tough ones, absolutely, but some very good decisions for the future of our city. One of the things that I'm passionate about is economic reform, how we spend our taxpayer dollars. Tonight's forum gives you sort of a snapshot of what we all believe, but I encourage you to continue to do your research, and if you're here tonight, you're already taking the first step, so thank you very much for being here, and thank you for the opportunity. But most importantly, I think that you should certainly ask me any questions that you have. If I say something tonight that you'd like more information on, I'm here. I'm a mother of 2. That makes me very passionate about our community. Obviously, if you're a parent or an aspiring parent, you want to make the world a better place for your children. That's kind of a given. But I'm also an IT program manager here in City. I'm very blessed to be able to work in Frederick and live here. And I just have some really good ideas for our future, and I look forward to sharing those with you. I want to let you know that your application for voting absentee ballot is due on September 3rd. So if you think that you can't vote via the polls, please consider going and applying for an absentee ballot before September 3rd. Monday is a holiday, so just keep that in mind.
Thank you very much. And finally, to round us out, Dave Schmidt.
Thank you all so much for coming out. I'm Dave Schmidt, and a little bit about me. I grew up here in Frederick. Actually served on the student government here at FCC. In fact, probably the last time I was up on this stage speaking was at a new student orientation. A little bit different crowd, but my family's had a small business here in Frederick for about 20 years now. I've had my own business for about 3, and what I've learned is that leadership starts with service. So because of that, I served for a couple years in the United States Marine. I came back and I want to keep serving. So my priorities, real quick, are efficient government. I believe that if we increase efficiency, that we can continue to pay for services here in the city without raising taxes. Second, return on those taxes. If Annapolis is going to spend our money, I want them to spend it here. Third, long-term financial planning. We need to build into our code sound fiscal principles. And lastly, smart growth, intelligent growth. We need to grow the tax base. And we also need to make sure that our residents not only can afford to live here and can make their money here, new jobs, but they can spend their money here, not down the road. Again, I'm Dave Schmidt. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. We're going to give them a round of applause. So moving on to our general question portion of the evening. This is our first round, and remember, I'll be asking you all the same question, and we'll be going down the line, and you'll have 1 minute, 30 seconds to answer. So let's get to it. We're going to be starting at this end of the table with Mr. Cowell. The economy has impacted nearly every area of city operations, and Frederick's government has had to navigate some rough financial waters. Yet several pressing subjects are commanding the attention of our city's leaders: pension reform, downtown hotel, conference center, future of the Golden Mile and the Hargett Farm, finishing of Cow Creek. The list goes on and on. We'll delve into the nitty-gritty on some of those this evening, but right now I want you to tell us, what do you see as the biggest threat facing the city, and what are you going to do about it?
This is right up my alley, being a banker. The biggest threat to the city that we have right now is the unfunded health plan and unfunded pension benefits. We all know that the cost of healthcare is skyrocketing every year. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it was very inexpensive if you had an insurance company to pay. All you had to do was pay maybe a $5 or $20 deductible. Now the deductibles are twice that, 3 times that, and every year they continue to increase. So we have unfunded liabilities that we need to pay down by liquidating unnecessary assets, particularly the Hargett Farm. It has some tricky wording behind it with the bond that was provided by the state. However, there's always a way to sell property. We just have to be creative in looking into that. So that's one of the biggest threats that I see. Also, we need to continue the development of the city, but with smart growth without incurring any additional more tax burden to the taxpayers. Ultimately, I want to make sure that we all have lower property tax, but we still sustain good growth.
Very good, thank you. We'll move on to Phil Dacey, 1.5 minutes.
Well, I think I wouldn't say it's a threat, but I think the biggest challenge that the city is facing is growth, and that's really the main reason why I've decided to run this time. People out in the audience probably know that the Board of Aldermen has annexed 500 plus acres into the city. A lot of farmland that's going to be developed. It's already set to develop, so I mean that horse is already out of the barn. But I think over the next 4 years, the Board of Aldermen and the next mayor are going to have a lot to say about how we develop. I like to say when I grew up here, there were 30,000 people in the city. Now we have 65,000. It's more than doubled in my lifetime. And yet, if you think about it, we're really using the same roads that we used when I was a kid going to school. And so I think the challenge that we all face, the Board of Aldermen, the mayor, and the citizens of Frederick, is how to best negotiate that new growth. Frederick needs the growth. Don't get me wrong, I think growth is good. The city needs to grow. And I think it's a matter of how we grow. We want to make sure we grow with not just residential housing. We need to make sure that people can live here, that people can work here, that people can shop here. That will deal with a lot of the traffic problems that we have. That'll deal with a lot of the other types of problems that commuting brings. You know, my neighbors, I live in a new development on the north end, and my neighbors, many of them commute to Alexandria, to Washington, D.C., to Baltimore. We need, and as a result, they're less likely to be involved in community life. We need to preserve the community life that we have in Frederick here. A big part of that is economic development through bringing good jobs, high-quality jobs here to Frederick, and I think that's the biggest challenge that we face. Thank you.
Now move on to Mr. Duke. Mr. Duke, 1.5 minutes.
So I'd have to say that the post-employment benefits and the pension is one of our biggest challenges as well, because if we don't get that under control, nothing else is, everything else would pale in comparison. It's just gone up astronomically. And here's something, I was looking at some of the plans that we discussed. Some of them might take 19 years to pay it down to a certain amount, but if you look at it this way, so if you have a little one who's maybe 1 or 2 years old, they will be sitting right there listening to someone like Dave when he gave his orientation a few years ago. 20 years from now, they'll be students here at FCC, and we still wouldn't have really gotten it under control. If we don't get under control, and I'll be honest, I'm not a financial person, I'm a political science person, but I've studied the numbers, so if we don't get it under control now, our bond rating may be affected. If our bond rating gets affected, it's going to cost more for us to borrow. If it costs more for us to borrow, it's going to lead to higher taxes. Higher taxes are going to lead to more people leaving the city. Businesses not coming into the city. Frederick didn't get this way by mistake. All you have to do is look at someplace like Hagerstown. It's a great city, but it's suffering. So we need to get that under control. Now, I mentioned taxes. We've all been door knocking. I've crossed a lot of these guys out on the streets, and when we go door knocking, people say, you know what, Hayden, it's expensive to live in Frederick. Well, it's expensive to live in Maryland, but it's expensive to live in Frederick. And I spoke to some woman who's been here 40 years, and she said, if we don't get these taxes under control, I'm going to have to leave. Now, she's been here. She's paid into Frederick. She's been there when Frederick needed her, and now that she needs Frederick, we need to look into something like a senior tax credit. So we've got a whole bunch of financial issues going on, and believe me, if we get elected, we're going to tackle them.
Thank you very much. Alan Imhoff, 1.5 minutes.
Okay. The information that you were given in the first part of the question, I think we all agree they all need to be looked at. And they will be looked at by whoever's going to be in the administration, because they have to. And we have the processes and procedures in place for most of it, and where we don't, we need to attack it. But when you were asking what is the biggest threat, I don't think it's been addressed yet. Sequestration, the reduction of federal spending, and the loss of major employers in the city are going to affect our ability to raise the funds to attack all the problems that we were talking about. With regards to major employers, it was just in the paper a couple of weeks ago with State Farm reducing. We've already lost SolarX, and while not in the city, many of its employees used to live in the city, was Bechtel Corporation. When you're looking at major employers, they can come and they're a real big benefit, but they can also go. So economic growth is one of the biggest threats that we have. Will we be able to increase the tax base to get the revenue to solve the problems that we have? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to Jill King.
I have to agree with Alan here. One of our biggest threats is gaining and retaining employers and citizens. The people I've talked to feel like they have paid way too much in their dues and are now paying more at other levels and to travel up and down the road to go to work to a job that suits their skill level. I have looked at some of the items that are needed, some of the job growth that we need. I have looked at a plan that I call Live Here, Work Here, which would decrease traffic on the roads. It would keep people in their communities, which makes it safer, and it also increases the ability of people to maintain and have a family and spend time with their family. It's important to get the employers to come here and work with the people and get them to have more self-sufficient neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Katie Nash.
I would say the biggest threat facing the city of Frederick is the status quo. And what do I mean by that? I mean doing the same thing that we've always done and not sort of using innovation to do things differently. So talking about expenditures, how we spend our money. If we continue to spend as we have, buy land, continue to maintain a golf course, pensions and everything like that, we will have to raise taxes. That is just the math that we face. If we continue to look at growth the same way that we always have, and we don't have innovative solutions like an infrastructure bank, which is one of the things that I'm pushing, then we will continue to build houses before we build infrastructure and not have the adequate facilities that we need. If we continue to look at economic development the same way that we always have, then the Golden Mile will continue to sort of stagnate. You know, maybe Walmart will fix things, maybe it won't, and we'll have a blighted Golden Mile. Blighted properties, that is the #1 issue that I've been hearing a lot about. If we continue to do things as we have, we won't fix things. So I think we have a lot of innovation and a lot of ideas up here on the stage, and certainly last night as well with the Democrats running. But please vote for a candidate that offers solutions and truly looks at the issues and has some ideas on how to make things better.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Dave Schmidt.
Thanks. I'm going to agree with Alan as well. I think the deterioration of our tax base is going to be the biggest threat coming up to us. This is why I talk about efficiency so much. It's so important that we have a certain set of resources and that we use them efficiently in our government. One thing I saw in the military a lot was that we would simply spend way too much for something because nobody took the time to go find out where we could get it cheaper. So I think that needs to happen, and not through firing of our city workers or anything like that. But we can go and examine the way our city does business, and we can make sure that we're using our money, the money that you're entrusting in us, we can use it effectively and efficiently. But let me talk about the deterioration of tax base. We need to be the innovation center for Maryland. We need to be the place that businesses want to come. And a big part of that is going to be creating an environment, a regulatory environment here in the city that makes things conducive for businesses to come here. You know, when we talk about growth, you know, there's going to be annexations, but I think what's most important over the next 4 years is going to be in growth. It's going to be infill. We need to be filling up these businesses, and we need to be bringing that innovation here. I want to make it the place where if you graduate with a tech degree, you want to come here. Another piece of that is going to be affordable housing. I'm going off on a little piece here, but I think that we need to, again, to fight that deterioration of the tax base. We need to fight, and we need to make it more efficient. We need to be bringing in that innovation and that change. So that's what I think is the biggest threat to us, and the way we can fix that is by, again, being efficient in our government practices.
Excellent, thank you very much. We'll move swiftly on to round 2. Now, I mixed the order up this round, so nobody knows who's going to get the first question. So, pace yourselves. And don't forget, you have 30 seconds. All the other candidates who are not taking a question, whether or not you want to jump in on that question. Be careful, choose your moment wisely. If you use the 30 seconds, remember you won't be able to use it again. And if you're not taking a question, you're just going to have to sit on your hands. And if you've taken a question, that's it. So, raise your hands following the question if you want to use those 30 seconds, and I'll take it as best I can in order. You'll have 1 minute and 30 seconds for each question. So, we're going to start with Katie Nash. Ms. Nash, you can't get here from there. Used to be the old saying when it came to navigating the city's streets and byways. Things are a bit easier now, but still, city growth has meant more cars and trucks clogging up Frederick, especially around rush hour. Where does transportation rate among your priorities, and what's the most pressing project you see for the city?
I think that transportation is part of the larger discussion about growth and how you sort of envision growth for the city of Frederick. I think Phil mentioned that the city is growing. It will continue to grow, and how we manage that growth is going to sort of be a defining moment for the next 4 years, whoever serves you. So as I see growth and as I see transportation, I see the need for a new way of doing things. You know, we've always relied on the housing industry as they build houses to sort of then, you know, use the APFO to apply the money at the back end. So the houses go up, and then hopefully later on the road improvements are made. That's a failed model. It's not working. Anyone who's been to Wegmans at 5 o'clock in the afternoon knows that it's not working. So as I see things and as I see transportation, one of the priorities that I've mentioned is creating a local infrastructure bank. What does that mean? Essentially that means that as we sort of pay for our infrastructure from the front end, instead of paying for the back end, we put the money in a bank and it's escrowed, and so that money can be used to fund improvements as they're needed, rather than later when things are just so bad that everyone's frustrated. If you want to name one project that I think is indicative of this, if you've ever been on Rosemont Avenue, Tuscany Drive, if you're trying to make a left into Whittier, or if you're trying to make a left into Walnut Ridge, Those apartment buildings have been constructed, and that was part of a 2005 site plan, so well within the limits of what the builders were given. The apartments go up. Did you see any road improvements? There were no road improvements. The developers were given 15 grand to make a street light improvement. So we have to wait now and wait till the money's there to have a street light or a turn lane. That is a very dangerous intersection. Anyone who's ever been over there knows that trying to make a left into that community is a very, very dangerous intersection. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll move back down the table. Sorry, I forgot. Yes, would anybody care to speak to the question? Go ahead, please. 30 seconds.
All right, I'm taking a risk by using my one challenge here early, but transportation and roads, that's really the top priority, I think, for the city as it comes into the next 4 years. Monocacy Boulevard has been funded by the state. The state is going to be looking for, through the Consolidated Transportation Plan, the next priority to fund. I think we've got a lot of places to look. Route 15 is certainly one of them, especially that Route 15, Route 40 intersection. If we can upgrade that, I know it's going to be a significant amount of money, but with state help, like I said, the state is going to be looking for the next project to fund. If we could upgrade that, I think we could do a lot to attract some high-quality employers through its proximity to two major highways, Fort Detrick, which is going to be growing.
All right, that's it.
Thank you.
It's more like 40 seconds. We'll move back down the table. Would anybody else care to speak to the question? All right, Mr. Duke, you're up next.